Tonight, the case against Frank Stronach. New details on sexual assault charges against the Canadian billionaire. The alleged incidents involving 3 women. Accusations denied by the 91-year-old. Calgary's water crisis reaching a new low. Restrictions could last for another 5 weeks.
This is the most dramatic and traumatic break of the feeder main they have ever seen.
Plus, the first meeting between Justin Trudeau and Narendra Modi since accusations of an assassination.
Both the Indian and certainly the Canadian governments have been trying to repair the damage.
Also soaring into history on Canada's first commercial electric flight.
Price for electricity for a 45-minute flight is under $2.
And refusing to shake it off.
Welcome to Taylor Swift Current.
I like it.
The campaign to get Taylor Swift back to Saskatchewan.
CTV National News with Heather Butts.
Good evening. The frustrating start to summer in Calgary just got even worse. That catastrophic water main break more severe than originally thought. Crews have discovered significant additional damage on the feeder main that ruptured last week. People will now have to wait several weeks to turn the taps all the way back on. CTV's Alicia Fieldberg starts us off.
For more than a week, people in Calgary and surrounding communities have been asked to conserve water, and it's not over yet. More time is needed to fix the broken pipe, and the city warns water use rose again.
We used up our sustainable threshold. We still have to do better.
Crews have made progress at the site of a feeder main where support wires embedded in the concrete failed on June 5th. 5 additional hot spots need to be repaired, drastically pushing back the time to get it fixed.
Our only choice is to stay the course with our current water restrictions for 3 to 5 weeks longer and do these critical repairs now.
Running water for outdoor purposes is banned, and people are asked to take measures to cut indoor water use by 25%, such as quick showers and only full-load dishwashers. Even little things can make a big difference.
We all did 3 less flushes in our households. We would be back to the low water usage that we saw on Saturday last week.
We are confident in the ability to be able to manage fire and emergency response accordingly. We are urging you to continue to conserve water so that this remains true while the repair work continues.
If water use isn't reduced, the city warns it could impact everyone.
And our water supply can't keep pace. Our taps will run dry.
This Calgarian is doing his part with the help of 3 rain barrels to water plants and reducing use inside as well. Steps the city urges everyone to take.
Very conservative with the water and hope everybody else is the same way.
The city said that this is a safety concern and repairs need to happen now. Of course, that's going to impact everybody's summer plans, everything from pools to spray parks to the greatest outdoor show on earth. The Calgary Stampede tells us they too have just learned about the extended water restrictions and will be working with the city on how to proceed. Alicia Fieldberg, CTV News, Calgary.
New revelations tonight about the criminal charges filed against a prominent Canadian businessman. Frank Stronach, the founder of Ontario auto parts giant Magna International, is being accused of committing sexual offences against 3 women over multiple decades. CTV's Sean Leathong reports.
Court documents obtained by CTV News outline the charges against Canadian billionaire and philanthropist Frank Stronach, alleging assaults from July 1980, February 1986, and April of 2023. The charges Stronach is facing: rape, indecent assault on a female, 2 counts of sexual assault, and forcible confinement. The documents including vague details when referring to the charge dating back to 1980. It's alleged that Stronach did have sexual intercourse with a name we're not identifying, a female person who was not his wife, without her consent. Charges were filed in Peel Region with appearances set for Ontario Court of Justice in Brampton. The court documents alleging that the incidents occurred in or around the city of Toronto or the province of Ontario and in Aurora. We asked Peel Police why the case has been brought in Peel rather than Toronto or York Region, but our request for comment was not answered. Stronach is best known as the founder of Aurora-based auto parts maker Magna International. His arrest on June 8th made international headlines with a statement coming from his lawyer Brian Greenspan saying, Mr. Stronach categorically denies allegations of impropriety which have been brought against him. He looks forward to the opportunity to fully respond to the charges and maintain his legacy both as a philanthropist and as an icon of the Canadian business community. In the aftermath, Stronach's former company, Magna International, released a statement creating distance. We have recently been made aware of the charges filed against Frank Stronach. Magna has no knowledge of the investigation or the allegations that have been raised beyond what's been reported in the media. Mr. Stronach has had no affiliation with Magna since relinquishing control in 2010. For now, this is an ongoing legal matter. We cannot provide any further comment. Stronach was released on his own recognizance, with bail conditions being no contact with the 3 alleged victims, and he was to surrender his passport to Peel Police.
Shantley Thong, CTV News, Toronto.
The Princess of Wales issued a personal message today, stepping back into the public eye for the first time since her cancer diagnosis. Kate shared an honest and emotional update on her health. CTV's Kamal Karamali joins us with more. Kamal, what did she reveal?
Heather, the Princess of Wales set to make her public return tomorrow for King Charles' birthday parade in London. Kate Middleton confirming her appearance over social media. In her public letter, the Princess of Wales says she's making good progress, but as anyone going through chemotherapy will know, there are good days and bad days. She says on the bad days, you feel weak and tired. She adds her treatment is ongoing and will be for a few months, but is starting to do little work from home and hoping to join a few public engagements over the summer, but equally knows she's not out of the woods yet. Princess Kate confirmed back in March she was battling cancer, although never specified what kind. She said during chemo on her good days, she wants to make the most of feeling well. She'll now join members of the royal family for the King's birthday parade this weekend called Trooping the Colour. Royal watchers believe it's a move to put an end to any further speculation on her health.
Because there'd been so much speculation, we hadn't been kept informed, and there was a decided problem. But equally, there's no doubt also that this does show a very, very encouraging sign.
The Princess of Wales also thanked supporters for their kind messages. Meanwhile, King Charles says he's, quote, delighted that Kate Middleton will be at Trooping the Colour. Heather.
Kamal, thanks. Across the country, Canadians are cleaning up after yesterday's storms and bracing for more. Near Ottawa, this footage shows lightning striking a home, burning a hole in the roof as storms swept through the area. North of Toronto, trees were knocked down by heavy winds. Thousands in central Ontario were without power. Parts of Alberta also faced high winds and the threat of tornadoes. Looking forward, heavy rainfall and high winds are expected in western parts of the country, while Quebec is expecting a scorching heat wave. Meantime, south of the border, large parts of the country are recovering from torrential downpours and floods, but more is on the way. Much of the Miami area is still underwater. On Wednesday, some parts of South Florida were battered with nearly 100 millimeters of rain in just 1 hour. In America's heavily populated Northeast, over 50 million people are in the path of powerful thunderstorms. The disruptive weather has forced several thousand flights to be delayed. G7 leaders will be in Canada for next year's summit. The Prime Minister announced today the country will host the gathering in the heart of the Rocky Mountains. It will be in Kananaskis, west of Calgary. That's where the G8 summit was held in 2002 with Prime Minister Jean Chrétien, back when Russia was a member. Vladimir Putin wasn't invited to the summit that wrapped up today, but the Prime Minister of India was, and he met with Justin Trudeau for the first time since Canada accused his government of being involved in the killing of a Sikh activist. Here's CTV's Annie Bergeron-Oliver with more on that meeting and the unprecedented appearance by the Pope.
Pope Francis landed in southern Italy in a white helicopter and was quickly ushered to an audience of world leaders seeking his attention. The Pope came to the G7 to raise the alarm about artificial intelligence and the need to craft regulations so it is only used for good. Human dignity itself depends on it, he said. Just last year, a deep fake of Pope Francis in a white puffer jacket showed just how fast misinformation can spread. And around this G7 table, a majority of these leaders are currently facing an election in the next 18 months, including Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, who met with the Pope privately today.
When we think about disinformation at speed and scale and across all the different types of media content that AI can now generate, That poses a real challenge for democracies and democratic elections, and it's definitely something that's on the mind of the leaders at the G7 as they gather here.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi was also invited to the summit, and for the first time since India's G20 last September, Modi and Trudeau shared this brief interaction. It comes months after Trudeau accused New Delhi of being involved in the assassination of Canadian Hardeep Singh Nijjar.
Canada does have an ongoing relationship with India, and there's no doubt in my mind that at all diplomatic levels, this relationship is, as best as possible, trying to be repaired.
And while day one saw consensus on Ukraine, the summit closed on an unexpected note of conflict. With language watered down in the joint communiqué, Italy's request from a direct mention of addressing access to safe and legal abortions and post-abortion care in last year's leader statement to a commitment to further promote comprehensive sexual and reproductive health and rights for all. The Prime Minister's office says Trudeau congratulated Modi on his re-election and that the two talked about bilateral relations. What specifically was brought up, though, Heather, that remains unclear.
All right, Amy, thanks. Bolstering Ukraine's defense in its war efforts against Russia was top of the agenda at the NATO defense ministers meeting in Brussels today. Canada is confident in reaching its spending target. CTV's Jeremy Sharon is following the story. What kind of timeline is being laid out?
Heather, that is the big question. This is another step towards achieving the NATO defense spending target of 2% of GDP. But when the target could actually be met and the path to get there still isn't clear. Defense Minister Bill Blair made the comments today from a NATO ministers' meeting in Brussels.
My defense spending budget will increase by 27% next year over this year. But Canada still has more work to do.
The minister says Canada is boosting its investments in the Arctic near its shared border with Russia as the region warms quickly due to climate change. They include integrated air and missile defense capabilities and a new fleet of submarines. The minister's office says these investments are on top of funding outlined in a defense policy update earlier this year, which outlined a plan to get to over 1.7% by 2030, but offered no date for when it could reach 2%.
I believe it brings us inevitably to over 2% of defense spending, but I've got some work to do in order to be able to articulate that both to my own country and to our allies.
The minister only said today these new investments put Canada on track to get to 2% soon. What that actually means isn't clear, and the minister is likely to face more pressure on the issue at next month's NATO summit in Washington. Heather?
Jeremy, thank you. NDP leader Jagmeet Singh is not willing to break ranks with the minority Liberal government, even after criticizing the Prime Minister for failing to protect Canada's democracy. CTV's Judy Trinh with the latest look at foreign interference.
I was a target.
The stakes are suddenly higher for Jagmeet Singh. After reading the unredacted parliamentary report on foreign interference, he's calling out the Prime Minister for not taking action sooner and Pierre Poilievre for refusing to get the clearance to read it.
Conservative leadership races were the target of foreign interference by India, a country that is also alleged to have killed a Canadian on Canadian soil, as well as interference from China. His response has been silence.
Poilievre's team fired back at Singh for propping up the minority government. He should stop blindly supporting the Liberal government and let them face Canadians in an election.
Parliamentarians have been kicked out of caucuses for doing far less.
In the report, a small number of parliamentarians who colluded with foreign governments are named. There are details of how the agents operated. Analysts say that's important information leaders can act on now without breaking national security laws.
Some of the community organizations that may be under control of certain adversarial foreign governments, if you're briefed on that, you can actually warn your candidates.
All the MPs, except for the Green Party, have voted to punt the issue to the foreign interference inquiry. This ex-CSIS manager calls it another delay tactic.
They don't have a mandate to look at this, particularly the one case that could be espionage. They're going to have an investigative capacity. They're going to have to reassess perhaps the CSIS assessments on it.
The foreign interference inquiry resumes in the fall. Justice Marie-Josée Hogue has yet to decide if she will look into the cases of witting and semi-witting MPs when it returns. Heather.
Judy Trinh in Ottawa. In BC today, clear skies for a historic flight. Coming up, a Canadian first in an electric plane. Plus, Taylor Swift fans clamoring for an encore. A Canadian first in the skies over Vancouver Island today. A student pilot became the first person to take a paid trip on board an electric flight. CTV's Andrew Johnson has the high-flying details.
You ready for this?
Yeah, I think I am.
15-year-old Edwin Clements and his flight instructor take off from Campbell River, BC and make Canadian history.
It's an absolutely huge moment because now we have a tangible example to demonstrate to the rest of our country that electric aviation is here, it is ready.
They're in a Pipistrel Velis Electro, an electric plane developed in Europe. It runs on two 200-pound batteries that supply enough juice for about 50 minutes of flying time. Perfect for a flight school that takes students up for short hops over the city.
We don't need to use a plane that's burning avgas. They burn about $80 an hour for just a Cessna 172, and a Beaver burns a lot more than that. And then the price for electricity for 1 hour or for 45-minute flight is be under $2.
Electric planes still aren't certified in this country for commercial use, but Sealand Flight has an exemption under a trial program with Transport Canada. In the air, pilots say the plane behaves much like its gas-powered counterparts, with a few notable advantages.
They're much quieter, there's no emissions. Long term, we hope that they're cheaper to operate.
A drawback, along with the limited range, the two people on board can't weigh more than about 400 pounds combined. More practical commercial flights are still years away, but the pilots here are pumped to be flying electric, period.
It's pretty unique and it's pretty rewarding.
As for the teen who paid $20 for his historic flight today, he says he's now more sure than ever he wants to be a pilot.
Really cool experience.
When you're finished flying for the day, you just plug this baby in, and it'll be back to fully charged in about an hour. Andrew Johnson, CTV News, Campbell River, BC.
Canada and the United States now have another connection. The linking piece of the Gordie Howe International Bridge connecting Windsor, Ontario to Detroit, Michigan was installed today. The $6.4 billion bridge crosses the Detroit River and is named after Detroit Red Wings legend Gordie Howe. Once completed, it will be the longest cable-stayed bridge in North America. It's expected to open late next year. Well, still ahead, it's game on. The summer of soccer kicks off in Germany. Excitement for soccer fans has reached fever pitch. The Euro 2024 tournament kicked off in Germany today, and Canada is preparing to take on world champions Argentina at the Copa America next week. CTV's Adrian Gabriel has more on the beautiful game.
One moment, the beautiful game can lift you out of your seat. The next, it can leave you crushed. 23 nations will be sent packing from the Euro Cup. Only one will reign supreme. Footy fanatics, like almost all sports fans, tolerate the pain while in pursuit of glory.
And it's in! French Germany's!
This is the heart of Toronto's Little Italy, the unofficial headquarters for each and every Euro Cup. Now, depending on what side of the pond you're from, it's either football or soccer. Though one thing is for sure, in a country and a city with such rich cultural diversity, the passion runs deep every time the Euros take flight.
Ready to go. Team Deutschland.
TGIF had a little extra kick this Friday. Germany was the heavy favorites heading into today's tournament opener against Scotland. But that didn't stop fans from coming early to this Toronto pub to pledge their allegiance.
You're sitting front and center here.
I am that. Just arrived. Beer in hand.
First pint?
Yes, first pint. First of many.
Eager fans whose ancestors hail from Deutschland were also found chomping at the bit well before kickoff.
What's on the menu here?
Today we got a little bratwurst. We got some sauerkraut. Ready to go. True German fan, you know.
Is the secret to Germany's success in the sausage?
It's all in the sausage.
The host nation Germany did get off on the right foot today, beating Scotland 5-1. They're one of the favorites to win it all, along with France, Portugal, Spain, and England, who lost in the finals at the last Euros.
I know England, every time a major tournament comes around, everyone expects, or well, English fans expect them to do well. But I really think this could be the year where they finally break through.
The football fun doesn't end with the Euros. Soon fans across the country will be coming together when Canada takes to the pitch at the Copa Americas June 20th against Lionel Messi and the World Cup champions, Argentina. Adrian Gobriel, CTV News, Toronto.
Another arena filler up next.
Welcome to the Eras Tour.
Taylor Swift's Saskatchewan era. Taylor Swift's long-running Eras Tour is coming to a close with her last stop slated for Vancouver, but Swifties in Saskatchewan are not willing to shake it off. Here's CTV's Alison Bamford on the push to convince the megastar to head back to Saskatchewan.
Taylor Swift's ties to Saskatchewan go as far back as her country music days.
Having the country connection off the bat was probably what jump-started the fan base here more than anything else.
Eras later, the fan base has never been stronger.
I feel like I know someone at every show that has traveled to see her from Saskatchewan.
Now Saskatchewan wants Swift to come to them.
Why would Taylor Swift come to Saskatchewan? But why wouldn't she?
It's the beginning of a province-wide movement to get Taylor Swift back to Saskatchewan.
If everyone gets on board, I think that's a very real pitch.
Inspired by a 2009 tweet when the singer declared her love for Saskatoon and shortened the province's name to Saskatchewan. That same year, she played the Craven Country Jamboree.
One of the highlights, I think, of my life.
Swift's connections to the province run deep.
On the road, I go antique shopping all the time. I bought a lot of furniture in Saskatchewan, Canada.
Many hope she can be persuaded to return.
I'm starting to believe, especially with all of the Swifties starting to come forward each day.
Even Saskatchewan's health minister jumped on board.
We'll give it a shot, and you never know what might happen.
And the city of Swift Current promised to change its name if the singer visits.
When she's there, if she wants to pick up her guitar and maybe play a set at our Market Square, that would be pretty darn cool too.
A small wrinkle in the plan, Swift announced yesterday that the Eras Tour will end in December after her only Canadian stops in Toronto and Vancouver.
She's known for surprising and delighting her fans. There's nothing stopping her from coming here and surprising and delighting all the Saskatchewanians.
One of their wildest dreams that Swifties hope comes true. Alison Bamford, CTV News, Regina.
The Swifties era. That's our newscast. I'm Heather Butts. Good night.